Welcome to the show. I'm James Swanwick. You're about to listen to my conversation with Rich Roll. I did this some time ago, this interview, and since then he's really blown up on Instagram and YouTube. And, he's very big in the space of health and vitality. And I'll do a proper introduction for him in just a moment. But yes, exciting to bring these amazing folks to you. And this is not just a show about quitting alcohol. It's also about nutrition and health and mindset and conscious communication. And Rich Roll certainly practices all of those things. And Rich also was a former heavy drinker. In fact, he'd probably call himself an alcoholic and gone on to great things. It's amazing what people can create in their life in terms of relationships or business success or joy when they let go of this attractively packaged poison that we call alcohol. Just a reminder, if you don't follow me on social media, you can follow me at James Swanwick on Instagram and TikTok. There seems to be a few videos there that have done particularly well in terms of popularity. A few of them now over 5 million views and a couple over 2 million views. This worldwide trend of people being more conscious around alcohol is really kicking off, as evidenced by that. I've been actually very pleasantly surprised at how quickly this worldwide trend of people being more conscious about their drinking habits is really taking off here, really happening. If you'd like to email me, you can email me at james@alcoholfreelifestyle.com. There are links in the show notes here as well. If you are someone that is struggling, stopping drinking, and you want some professional outside support, you're ready. You can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90. You're welcome to schedule a 15-minute call with one of my coaches if you feel ready. I just invite you not to schedule a call if you're not ready. We're not here to persuade you to stop drinking. If you've already persuaded yourself to stop drinking and you're ready and you're looking for some support with that in a like-minded community with accountability and amazing coaches and to have fun doing it, to really increase your chances of creating a breakthrough with your drinking habits, that's when you would reach out to us. And again, alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90. Here is my conversation with Rich Roll. From drunk to athlete, how do you go from drinking alcohol a lot and being unhealthy and eating the wrong foods, not exercising appropriately, and just basically having a pretty ordinary life when it comes to health, to becoming an ultra endurance athlete and an author on health and wellness, a health and wellness advocate, in fact, and having a top 10 ranked podcast that deals with health and fitness? How do you do it? How do you make that transformation? Today we're going to find out. I'm happy to welcome Mr. Rich Roll. Rich, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show, James. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's great to have you here. I've listened to your podcast on and off for the past 12 months. Congratulations on the success that you have with that. You can find it in iTunes in the health section. You're also the author of the book, The Plant Power Way, which, if you don't know who Rich Roll is if this is the first time you've been exposed to him, you'll know that The Plant Power Way alludes to the fact that Rich now has a plant-based diet. And today we're going to be talking about that.
That's right.
We're going to be talking about the power of plant-based foods. I am a paleo eater. I like to eat meat. I like to eat dead animals. So I've been looking forward to hearing your view on that, Rich. And also, given that I have just created the 30-day no alcohol challenge, which inspires people to take a break from alcohol for 30 days and just see the health benefits of that, I'm fascinated to hear about your story, because you used to drink quite heavily. So just for the uninitiated, just give us a quick overview of your life story, Rich, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had been an athlete as a young person. I was a swimmer in high school and swam at a fairly high level. I competed at Stanford in the late 1980s, which was kind of a swimming dynasty in the day. We had a bunch of NC2A championship wins, and I was training with world record holders and Olympic gold medalists and the like. And I was a bench warmer on the team. I was by no means a star, but I did have the opportunity to be an NC2A collegiate athlete. The problem was that when I got to college, I discovered that I enjoyed partying a little bit more than I enjoyed waking up at 5:30 in the morning to go to morning swim practice.
Right.
And partying really started to kind of take over my life, and ultimately pretty much destroyed my swimming career. I don't believe that I ever really reached my potential as a collegiate athlete. And, I'm one of those guys that just, from the first drink, I think deep down in my psyche, I knew that this potentially could be a problem. I was the guy who was always the last guy to leave the party. And, from the very beginning at the frat house, looking for the half empty drinks when the keg ran out to, keep the buzz going. And it worked for a while. I was always a shy kind of kid. I always had trouble making friends. I was kind of an isolated, human being who felt like everybody else had the roadmap for life. And I just, really had trouble connecting, and alcohol really brought me out of my skin, and it made me a social animal. And, I really credit it for that, for, teaching me certain ways of how to kind of navigate social relationships, in some respect, I suppose. But, as any good alcoholic will tell you, eventually it turns on you. And, my
Right.
drinking career lasted for about 15 years. And at the end, it took me to some really dark places. It eroded everything aspirational in my life. And it alienated me from my friends and my family until, at the very end, I was, somehow I managed to get through law school and get a job as a corporate lawyer here in Los Angeles. But, I was living a secret second life. And, I would start the day with a vodka tonic in the shower and sneak drinks throughout the day, and hide my empties and lie to everybody, most notably myself. And, weekends were lost in binge-fueled blackouts that left me, waking up in places unknown to me and not knowing where my car was, and collecting DUIs, and until, I was sleeping on a bare mattress in an otherwise unfurnished apartment on the precipice of losing my job and essentially everything that was important to me. And so at 31, I ended up having that moment of clarity that you hear about, and I shipped myself off to rehab for 100 days, and that really saved my life. And, when I kind of came out of that experience and started working on new tools for how I was going to live my life, I was very intent upon repairing all the wreckage that I had created as a result of my drinking and drug abuse. And I kind of threw myself into workaholism and chased that myth of the American dream. And so for a good 10 years, I really overlooked my health and my fitness. I was eating a junk food diet, cheeseburgers, French fries, Chinese takeout in the law firm, and really not exercising at all. So by the time I was 39, I'd packed on an extra 50 pounds around the midsection. And more than that, I was just depressed and unenthusiastic about my life. I was kind of hurtling into middle age and felt like I was living somebody else's life. And much like that day that I woke up and decided today is the day I'm going to get sober, I had a kind of moment of reckoning after I had to take a break halfway up a simple flight of stairs one evening, buckled over, sweat on my brow, and tightness in my chest, and thought I might be having a heart attack, and realized, in that moment that I really needed to change how I was living. And that was really the first step that kind of propelled me towards this exploration in wellness and kind of re-entering the world of competitive athletics as a 40
Right.
As a 40-something person,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of chasing that dream of being competitive once again. But I think in part was fueled by never really reaching my potential as a swimmer.
Right. Well, if that's a fascinating story, and thank you for sharing it with us. The alcohol, it's interesting. You said you had a drinking career of 15 years, which was an interesting choice of words. I like the way that you said that. And what does alcohol do to the body? I mean, look, the listener that we have right now, some of my listeners drink way too much. Some of them just drink a lot, but they probably don't think it's too much, but it's probably eating away at their health and they're not quite sure of it. And then there are some people who probably, want to quit entirely, but don't know how to do it. Can you just tell us a little bit about what does alcohol do to the human body, and any tips that you have for getting out of that, for breaking that habit, for either reducing or quitting alcohol altogether?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I really can only share my own experience with it. And for me, I have an allergy of the body, when it comes to alcohol. I can't, I'm one of those guys that just can't have one drink. And I realize, that's the condition of the alcoholic. There's an adage in recovery that goes like this. If I wasn't an alcoholic, I'd get drunk every day. And that's kind of like how I see it. But of course, I understand that that's not everybody's predicament. I think physically, it takes its toll on your body. It's incredibly, it's toxic to your, physical corpus. It's dehydrating. But I think, more than the physical aspects of it, it really, it takes its toll on you mentally and emotionally and psychologically. I mean, for me, it makes me unproductive. I get late. That feeling that you have when you wake up the next day, even if you've only had a few, it's just, you're not at your best. You're sort of lazy and you're fatigued and you just don't feel like going out and, grabbing the world by the tail and getting things done. And I think when you add that up over time, what does that leave you with in terms of, untapped potential as, a human being with our short amount of time here on Earth?
Yeah, it's funny. I never drank that heavily. I mean, when I was probably what you'd call a binge drinker, Rich. I grew up in Australia, Australian, obviously, and the Australian culture there was one of drink very heavily after work, drink very heavily at night on weekends, and I did that for a while through my 20s. And as I've spoken about many times here on the show, in 2010, I woke up in Austin, Texas, and I had a hangover. I'd only had a couple of drinks the night before. Ironically enough, it was a couple of Bombay Sapphire gins and tonics, but I just had a terrible hangover the next day. And I said, you know what, I'm going to see how long I can go without having a drink. Well, actually, my aim was to go 30 days, and then I got to 30 days, and I'd lost 13 pounds of fat. My skin had got better. I slept better. My relationships were better. I had more clarity. So I said, bugger it, I'll just keep going. Then I got to 40 days and said, I'll just keep going. Then I got to 50. And then I started to notice something around day 90. That was like everything was just starting to come together. Just the way that I saw things and relationships, and I was attracting a higher caliber of person into my life. And I was started to train for, half marathons, and I ran the New York Marathon. I mean, there were all these things that really started to be really beneficial in my life, but I just kept going. So I haven't had a drink since 2010, since that South by Southwest festival in Austin. And for me, it's been sort of transformed my life. And now, through the creation of my program, 30-Day No Alcohol Challenge, other people are seeing the benefits of that. I've just had one woman go through and lost 18 pounds in 30 days. It's quite remarkable. It's quite remarkable. Another guy had hives. He had a skin condition. He had hives underneath his eyes, and he quit drinking for 30 days, and the hives are gone. I mean, it's chaos. I mean, what it can do to us. So, your story of what it did to you, 15 years. I mean, it didn't just make you 50 pounds heavier. It also, by the sounds of things, ruined your social relationships. Maybe you were lying. Or you said you're having vodka tonic in the shower. You're hiding your empties. You're getting DUIs. You went. There's nothing good can come from overconsumption of alcohol, right, Rich?
No, I don't think so. I really don't. And I think those stories of weight loss are absolutely inspiring and amazing. But I think what was really poignant was what you said about the quality of your relationships and just your daily experience of navigating the world. I mean, I think that, when you're 18 years old, you can have a big night out and bounce back pretty quickly. But once you get into your 30s and then into your 40s, you just physically cannot do that anymore. Like It starts to take its toll. And when you kind of wake up and realize, wow, it takes me about 2.5 days to kind of shake off, a Saturday night, then I think it's time to, really reevaluate what you're doing. And I think, what's really potent is, when you let it go, it impacts everything. Like you start to, your priorities start to shift. You start to look forward to getting up early in the morning and taking care of yourself. And, I think there's this idea that if you're going to let it go, that suddenly your life isn't going to be fun anymore. And, all the good times are in the past. And, the club is where it's all happening. And if you're not going to go to the club, or if you're going to go to the club and be sober, then you're just going to be a bummer for everybody and you're not going to enjoy yourself. And my experience has been quite the opposite. I'm not that interested in going to the club anymore. And I realized that, that's not the place where I, find, enjoyment anymore. I
Right.
get so much more out of life and, chasing it with enthusiasm than I would have ever imagined. Because when I quit, I thought, it was game over. And I was being sentenced to, a life of, kind of, the doldrums, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word. And, my life just exploded in terms of the possibilities. And so I think that, even if you're not an alcoholic and it doesn't pose any, kind of material problems to your daily existence, I think what you will find is that your interests will shift and kind of a whole new world opens up to you.
That's exactly what happened to me, Rich. My interests shifted. I went from going out and partying a few times a week and going to clubs and bars and pubs and having a few drinks and sometimes having a lot of drinks, sometimes just having a couple beers per night, but always waking up feeling just a little bit average, mediocre. My sleep wasn't as good as it could be, and I was irritable. I was irritable
Mm-hmm.
the next day. Little things annoyed me, like having to wait too long at a supermarket line or someone cutting me off in traffic, or little things would just get on my nerves. But when I quit the drinking, the irritability was gone. I was so much calmer. And then I actually enjoyed getting up at 7:00 in the morning and going, wow, this is what 7:00 on a Saturday morning looks like. And I enjoyed going to the gym and working out and exercising and coming back and showering and having breakfast and looking at my watch, and it's only 10:30 in the morning on a Saturday and Sunday. And my other mates are just hauling their ass out of bed because they're hungover and sluggish. So, and then the relationship part, I'd be curious to find out from you how your relationships changed, because for me, it wasn't that the friends that I had when I was drinking were bad. They weren't. They were perfectly good friends. They were fine. It's just that I attracted a new type of friend into my life, which ignited new interests like hiking and health. I didn't know what paleo was. I didn't know what a plant-based diet was. I didn't know the difference between grass-fed butter and normal butter. I didn't know about intermittent fasting or the benefits of squats and deadlifts and the benefit of high intensity versus slow jog. I didn't know any of that stuff. But quitting alcohol opened up that whole world to me. Neither Rich nor I are saying that you have to quit alcohol altogether, but just use the 30 days to explore your relationship with alcohol, see what it's like. And then at the end of it, either stay quit or reduce and just test it. Test your life. So Rich, how did your relationships improve?
Oh, they improved dramatically. I mean, I think in my case, I used alcohol and drugs as a way to escape my life. I had emotional issues and I was in a lot of pain. And, my solution to that was to escape through, numbing myself out. And when you remove those medications, for lack of a better word, you're left with yourself. Right. And that's something that you have to reckon with. So for anybody who, kind of gets into problems with, substances, I think just removing them is the first step in kind of accessing and unlocking, who you truly are, because you're forced to look at yourself in the mirror and suddenly a lot of emotions, come up about, who you are, how you behave, what's important to you. And, as a result of kind of, blazing for lack of a better word and forgive the new age bent, but, kind of, becoming more interested in spiritual principles, I've been able to get to a place where, I'm really comfortable in my own skin. I think quitting drinking is an act of self-esteem. You're saying I'm worth it. I'm better than this. I don't need to harm myself or abuse myself with this. And, when you perform an esteemable act, that gives you self-esteem. And then you're excited to do something else that gives you self-esteem. And I think with that, then comes, a stronger sense of self that you carry into your relationships. And in my experience, it's allowed me to, feel better about my interactions with other people, to be more present with them instead of being distracted or thinking about, when you're out at the club and you got a buzz on and you're having a conversation with somebody, half the time you don't remember it. It's generally a meaningless thing. And on both sides of that equation. But when you remove that, you open up the possibility for having quality interactions with people that are vibrating on your wavelength, because, water rises to its own level. And when you're out, partying, it's going to attract a lower companion of, a person. But, once you free yourself of that and you start getting interested in taking care of yourself, well, that opens up the door to a whole new community of people who, are like-minded in the same regard. And I think that provides a foundation for you to then, start to work on yourself. And, as I say on my podcast, unlock and unleash the best, most authentic version of who you are on the world.
Yeah, I like that. So, Rich, once you actually went through those 100 days of rehab at 31 years old and you came out, tell me how your health and how your diet and nutrition education started to impact your dietary decisions. I know that we're sort of building up to the point where you decided to eat plants and become a vegan. But what was the journey like? Did you experiment with eating meat first, or did you understand paleo and then you moved on to being a vegan? Like, what? Just take us through that process from coming out of rehab to changing your whole the way that you eat and what you put in your body.
Right. So when I got out of rehab, I was 31. And so between age 31 and 39, I subsisted on what my fellow Aussie friend, Osher Gunsberg, calls the window diet. If you can roll your window down in your car and they hand you food, that's what you eat, so Jack in the Box, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, you do the math.
Osher's a great friend of mine, actually. He and I have been friends for a while. For those who don't know who Osher is, he's the former host of Australian Idol. He's kind of like the Ryan Seacrest of Australia, if you like, and he has his own podcast in iTunes as well, the Osher Ginsberg Show, which is a terrific show. Right. Definitely check him out in iTunes. So big shout out to Osher. Sorry, Rich, I interrupted you. Carry on.
No problem. I mean, Osher is a very good friend of mine, and he's somebody I like to go running and riding with, as well as, do you know Dan McPherson as well?
No, I don't know Dan.
Another Aussie. No. He's a host of Dancing with the Stars in Australia. But anyway, another kind of good mate of mine. So I'm down with the Aussies. But anyway, yeah, and I think in retrospect, looking back on that phase of my life, I had removed drugs and alcohol which was kind of the solution to my, emotional problem. And I then transferred a lot of my addictive tendencies onto unhealthy foods as a way of kind of medicating my state of mind. And, I played that out until I couldn't do it anymore and had that moment on the staircase, at age 39, fat and depressed, et cetera. And it was a scary moment that, kind of catapulted me into this realization that I needed to do something different. And what I should have done is, watched a bunch of documentaries and gone to the bookstore and picked up a bunch of books on healthy eating. And that just wasn't my experience. And what I did do is I turned to my wife, who had always been much healthier than me, and into yoga and meditation and kind of expanding her horizons, spiritually, with all sorts of interesting books laying around the house. And she was kind of my, pillar of strength. And I said, I really need help. And the first thing that I did was I did a 7-day vegetable juice cleanse, which was, something that I never would have entertained in a million years prior to this. I'm a logical minded person and just couldn't wrap my head around how drinking vegetable juice could have any impact on these mysterious toxins in our body. But I had the willingness to try something different. And, if for no other reason than symbolically, it was a way of kind of wiping the slate clean and doing something different. And, that was a pretty profound experience for me, because the first couple of days of that, I felt absolutely horrible. I felt like I was back in rehab, detoxing off heroin or something. And, because I'd never gone a single day of my life without eating solid food. But sure enough, the cobwebs slowly started to clear. And, by the end of that experience, I felt better than I could have ever remembered feeling in my life. Certainly in my adulthood, I had a resurgence of vitality, and my sleep improved and my skin cleared up. And, I just couldn't believe how different I felt after just 1 week of doing something different. And what that told me was, really that, the age-old edict of Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, really is true. And the fact that I could feel so different in such a short period of time helped me to understand just how incredibly resilient the human body is, when you treat it right. And I think that led me to, want to figure out a way to eat that would allow me to feel that way all the time. And I played around with a bunch of different diets. I can't say that I ever, explored. This was pre-paleo. It was kind of, before the paleo craze. So that wasn't really in my consciousness, but I tried a couple different things and really was not having much success. I think after 6 months, I kind of settled into a pretty junk food vegetarian type diet that left me back on the couch, overweight and depressed, and was really ready to kind of give up on this whole idea of healthy eating. When I thought, well, I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to try to remove the dairy products and the processed foods from my diet, in addition to the animal products the meat products that I'd already removed, and see if that makes a difference. And to be honest with you, my expectations were not high. And I think on some level, I didn't really want it to work because I wasn't that enthusiastic about not eating, so many of these foods that I enjoyed eating. But the truth is that within 7 to 10 days of making that switch, I felt like a completely different person. And I felt like I did on that 7th day of the juice cleanse. And it just really agreed with me. And that was kind of the beginning of realizing, that this could be this could be a lifestyle that I actually could embrace and quite possibly, if I put a little work into it, sustain. And so that was, about 8 years ago, and I've been doing it ever since. And the amount of energy that it gave me really was the reason that I returned to a fitness regimen to begin with. I had so much energy, I literally had to go outside and start doing something because I couldn't sit still. And so, that began with no competitive goals. Really all I wanted to do was just reconnect with my body and feel what it felt like when I was a young person as a swimmer and how much I enjoyed that. It was really kind of like a childlike, exploration of reconnecting with a lost part of myself. And,
Right.
One thing led to another. And I kept thinking about the incredible resiliency of the human body. And I thought, God, it's in such a short, all the weight came off so quickly. And I just thought, if this could happen, this has already exceeded my wildest expectations of what a diet could do for me. What am I truly capable of? Like, what if I challenge myself to see what I could do? And that's really kind of what fueled the desire to get back into being competitive.
James Swanwick here. Just a quick interruption to share some of the relationship breakthroughs that folks have been having inside of our Project 90 Stop Drinking process. Joe Worley from Michigan says, my wife has the real Joe back. Andres from Minnesota says, I'm a better dad. Dave Kelly from Australia says, I feel so much more connected to friends, family, and colleagues. And Angela, also from Australia, says, I'm spending more time with my kids. So if improving your relationships is your motivation or one of your motivations for stopping drinking and you would like some professional outside support, I invite you to go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90, watch the video, read some of the words on the page, learn about our process, and if it feels like it could be for you, you're welcome to schedule a free 15-minute complimentary call with one of our coaches. All right, let's get back to the episode. So let me ask you this. You and Osher, and to an extent, a great mate of mine in Brisbane, Australia, Jonathan Granger, who has a cold-pressed organic juice bar called Pressed there in my hometown of Brisbane, Australia, PRESS''D. You can check it out at pressedcafe.com.au. All you guys are telling me I should get on this plant-based diet and I should cut out meat and, and that meat and dairy and many processed foods require more energy to break down and stop eating cows and pig and all this kind of stuff. And then you've got people like Ben Greenfield, who's a big paleo guy, and Rob Wolf, Daryl Edwards. Obviously, they had the Paleo FX conference in Austin, Texas in May of this year. And they're all about, for tens of thousands of years, human beings ate animals and we should eat grass-fed beef. And for me personally, my story has been one of I just had no clue before 2010 what I should eat. I just ate whatever I wanted and just exercised enough and was pretty fit and pretty lean until the time where I wasn't. And then after I discovered paleo and started understanding it, and I cut out bread and pasta and soda, and I started eating lean meats and vegetables, I lost an incredible amount of fat and just felt 100 times better. And anyone who goes to my 30-day no alcohol challenge website, 30daynoalcoholchallenge.com, in the first 10 seconds, there's a photo there of me with Jennifer Aniston, the Hollywood actress who was in the TV show Friends for a while. And in that photo, I'm 218 pounds, and now I'm 190 pounds. So you can see the transformation. I was a fat bastard. I mean, I had puffiness in my face. My skin was awful. And in that photo with me and Jennifer Aniston, I was sucking my gut in because I was embarrassed because I was so chubby. When I started eating paleo and started eating lean meats and vegetables, the weight fell off. I got healthier. I slept better. I had more energy, and my life has been infinitely better ever since. So I guess my question is, how can one side say eat healthy lean meats and that's the way that we should be eating and that works for you? And how can the other side say, no, don't eat that, only have a plant-based diet only? Can we both be right, or is it a case of like one of us is right and one of us is wrong and time will tell?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. And, there are certainly, emotions run high on both sides of these camps for sure. And, Ben's a friend of mine, as is Rob. And, I get along with those paleo guys. And I think, in the grand scheme of healthy diets, paleo and plant-based are more closely aligned, I think, than meets the eye. I mean, certainly there are certain aspects of it on which we disagree. And, I try to kind of restrict my advocacy to my own experience. And I just know personally that, I went from 210 to 162. The weight loss was tremendous, but I didn't sacrifice any athletic prowess in the meantime. I went on to do things as an athlete I never would have dreamed possible, all fueled on plants. So, my message is that, if you think that eating plant-based is going to translate into you being some kind of weakling or nutrient deficient human being, I can tell you from personal experience that is far from the case. And to the extent that, one is better than the other, I mean, we can go around that merry-go-round forever. I think that what compels me to remain plant-based is a lot of the, studies and interest in longevity and in disease prevention. It's one thing to talk about athletic performance and eating for, maximum, sort of strength and power and agility, et cetera. But I think it's also important to look at, longevity and try to prevent, the onset of so many of these lifestyle diseases that, we're unnecessarily suffering from. And when I look at, the paleo people will tell you that the China study, which is this, giant landmark study that identified that animal protein is linked to the onset of and growth and propagation of cancerous cells, they'll tell you that study has been debunked. And there are plenty of very intelligent people in the plant-based movement that will tell you that is certainly not the case. And I know that, a plant-based diet has the ability to not only prevent, but actually reverse heart disease, diabetes, things that a lot of people are suffering from.
But I think a paleo diet can do the same thing, right? Like if you're someone who's obese and you're overweight and you're eating crap, I mean, you're eating processed foods and you're drinking soda and you're unhealthy. Isn't it true that both ways, whether it's eating lean meats and vegetables and plants versus eating only plants, can still get you tremendous health results in terms of reducing your chances of diabetes, improving, losing fat, feeling more vibrant, reducing your risk of cancer? Isn't it true that both of those ways, paleo and plant-based only, can improve your health?
Yeah, I think that is true. And I think what they share in common is a huge focus on eating a lot of vegetables. I think it's the vegetables and the fiber and the phytonutrients and the micronutrients that are really, crucial to that equation. and I think that, paleo puts a huge emphasis on that. And I think that that's fantastic. So, yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before, that I think that they have a lot more in common. We all want to talk about the differences, and we want to split hairs over this aspect or that aspect of it. But, certainly whether you're eating paleo or whether you're eating plant-based, you're miles ahead of, the standard American diet that's making us sick.
Right. Well, look, I grew up in a culture that's very much eat steak, eat a lot of steak. And whenever I go home to Australia for Christmas, the first thing I get put on my plate from my mum is steak. I get a home cooked meal, steak on the barbecue. Christmas Day, it's steak. There's shrimp, there's turkey, there's ham. That's just the culture that I grew up in. So I don't think that I'm switching to plant-based anytime soon. I actually did a 1 week. I did 7 days of no meat just recently, actually in March of 2015. And it was hard. It was hard for me because I'm so used to eating the texture of dead animal, of chicken or fish or pork or beef or steak or whatever. And, how did I feel at the end of the 7 days? I felt great. But I also feel great when I eat the steak and I eat the chicken and I eat the pork and the vegetables. It's only when I eat bread or have pasta or have a lot of sugar or eat potatoes or drink cans of soda or diet soda that I start to feel pretty ordinary, that I start to feel average. Right. So I just respond to what my body tells me. And I can't, you're right, we can go on a merry-go-round on this and it never ends. My gauge really is, how do I feel? How do I look? How much energy do I have? Do I feel healthy? Am I energetic throughout the day? And for me, paleo works for me. And doing the 7-day test, I don't know if 7 days is enough time to get a real gauge, but it worked. Only eating plant-based foods for 7 days worked for me too. So I don't know. My view really is whatever works for you. You can see the difference in your skin. You can see it in the way you sleep. You can see it in your fat loss and muscle growth. I think whatever works for you, whether it's paleo or plant-based, stick to that. Plant-based obviously works for you. It works for Osher Günsberg, worked for Bill Clinton, who's switched to a plant-based diet. Who else have noted? Matt Danzig is an MMA fighter I had on the show. He's a vegan or a plant-based diet. Carl Lewis is obviously one here. But then you got paleo guys like Schwarzenegger and no one could ever say that Ben Greenfield is not a picture of health and vitality, and he's a big paleo man.
Yeah, of course. Listen, there's no shortage of examples on each side, and I think that plant-based is still a tricky idea for a lot of people to wrap their head around. Including yourself. I can hear you kind of grappling with it. But there's more and more athletes that are coming out that are doing really well on it. Max, a friend of mine. It's harder sell, of course, to try to convince somebody to go plant-based than to go paleo. But I'm seeing more and more people trying it out and having success with it. And I think I would add, I think what you said is great, that you should, run the experiment on yourself. See what agrees with you. How do you feel? Because you're your own best gauge of what agrees with you. And everybody is different. I think that, I've now been doing this 8 years and other things have started to become more interesting to me, like the environmental impact of our consumer choices. And, right now in California, as you well know, we're in a huge water crisis. And we're all told to reduce our showers or not water our lawn. And, the truth of the matter is that consumer water use only accounts for about 5% of overall water use. Right. And animal agriculture requires 55% of it. So when we go and get a hamburger, a hamburger requires 660 gallons of water to produce. And a gallon of milk requires 1,000 gallons of water to produce. So when you start to think about sustainability and, kind of voting with your dollar and what you stand for, we all want to be kind of conscious, consumers, and we all want to be kind of good, productive, environmentally friendly members of our society. The more I kind of learn about the ills of factory farming and animal agriculture, it just kind of confirms my decision to continue on the path that I'm on.
Rich, as we head down the home straight here, tell us a little bit about your ultra endurance. Actually, no, before we get onto that, can you give us an example of what you have for breakfast, what you snack on, what you have for lunch, what you snack on, what you have for dinner, what times you do that? Like, what's a typical dietary day of Rich Roll?
Yeah, for sure. So usually my morning starts with, the first thing I do when I wake up is I drink a lot of water. I make sure that I'm hydrated. And then my typical morning meal is essentially drinking a salad. In my Vitamix blender, I'll pack it with dark leafy greens like spinach and kale, and I'll put some beet in there and some beet greens, maybe a little spirulina, some berries, a little pineapple, some hemp seeds, some chia seeds. Every day is different. There's no one recipe, but essentially, a very nutrient-dense, phytonutrient-dense green smoothie in the morning is what gets me out the door. And then I generally I do most of my training in the morning, so I'll go and I'll run, or I'll go to the pool, or whatever is on tap for that day. And then when I get back, I typically kind of refuel with some coconut water, maybe another smoothie with some plant-based protein in it, and a light meal of maybe quinoa and vegetables, or a big salad would be kind of a midday meal. I'll snack on fruit generally, dates, bananas, maybe some nuts, walnuts, or, I was eating almonds, but now I found out how much water almonds require to produce. So I'm trying to be more conscious about not eating too many almonds. But I keep it really basic and simple. Sometimes I'll just walk into Trader Joe's and they have pre-packed, vacuum-packed, pre-cooked lentils, and I'll just grab those. They're like $2, and that would be like a good snack, or like, an on-the-go lunch for me. I love veggie burritos, brown rice and beans with a little guacamole, and I'm pretty much good to go. My wife is a tremendous cook, so she's truly an artist in the kitchen. So dinner is generally a little bit more elaborate. I'm a pretty basic guy, and I'm happy with really simple things. My palate has adjusted where, now I really look forward to and really relish, things that before I would have thought were bland or boring. And now, I really just delight in eating.
I used to eat a hell of a lot of eggs for breakfast, big protein bomb. I'd go and work out in the gym on an empty stomach, and I'd come back, cook myself up 6 eggs, an avocado, maybe some bacon, some grass-fed butter, and like just a very paleo meal, high fat. Maybe I'd have a bulletproof coffee. Dave Asprey's, who's a friend of mine, he's the bulletproof executive, convinced me to, obviously put grass-fed butter into my coffee in the morning and eat a lot of fat. And I did that for a couple of years, and it was great. Put on some muscle, got lean, thought that was terrific. Recently, actually, since I've done this 30-day no alcohol challenge, I've been experimenting a lot more with some stuff. And my smoothies now in the morning are very similar to what you just described. So I actually feel pretty good about myself. The fact that Rich Roll, the legendary author of The Plant Power Way, just described a smoothie almost identical to the one that I've been making, because I've been putting spinach. I've been having a smoothie made up of spinach, kale, chia seeds, coconut water, blueberries, ginger, and mint. I put mint in there.
Nice.
And I stir that up, and I have that. Damn, that is a tasty smoothie in the morning. I got to tell you, that is delicious. And sometimes I put some of Dave Asprey's protein powder in there, which you wouldn't like probably because it's animal protein powder from grass-fed cows. But nevertheless, I put that in there. And I got to tell you, that is delicious. And it does give me a lot of energy, more energy, I have to say. Admittedly, I have to say, I feel lighter having drunk that than when I ate the 6 eggs and the avocado and the bacon and all that. I felt a little heavier, not so heavy that I was like, oh, this is sapping my energy. But I did notice that just drinking the plant-based drink, the word is lighter. I just felt a little lighter, not a lot lighter, just a little lighter. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing that I tell people all the time is don't worry about, whether you're going to be paleo or vegan or what team you're going to join or even what you're going to eat tomorrow. All you have to do is start your day with one of these kinds of smoothies and just pay attention to how you feel. And I think, what happens is exactly what you just described, which is this feeling of immediate, sustainable energy that overcomes you. And I think that helps solve the equation for a lot of people that I experienced early on. Like, wow, I didn't know that something like this could make me feel so good in the morning. And that will take you on your own journey. You'll say, wow, okay, what else can I eat that's going to make me feel this good? And I want to continue to feel this good. And then, empower people to go out into the world and make their own choices that agree with them and, whatever their values are or, their sort of health proclivities. But it's a really powerful thing. If you can make a habit, just make that one change, I think that will help, kind of set you on a new trajectory.
Okay, just going into our final question here, Rich, about your endurance athleticism. What exercise? You mentioned there's swimming and et cetera, but what ultra endurance competitions have you competed in? How has a plant-based diet contributed to your athleticism? And just give us a typical day if you're training for a competition. I'd love to just know about the physical side of your life.
Right. So I specialize in ultra distance triathlon. I've done a race a couple times called Ultraman. Most people have heard of an Ironman. That's a 140-mile, triathlon. Very strenuous, difficult race. But Ultraman is actually a little bit more than twice that distance. It's a 320-mile, 3-day circumnavigation of the Big Island of Hawaii. So the first day you swim 10 kilometers, 6.2 miles in the ocean, and then you ride your bike 90 miles. The second day, you race your bike 170 miles, and then the third day, you celebrate all of that with a 52.4-mile run, a double marathon run. So I've done that race a couple times. In 2009, I was the fastest American and sixth overall, and so I've had some success in that arena. And then in 2010, I did something called Epic 5, where a buddy of mine and I did 5 Ironmans on 5 Hawaiian islands in under a week, going to island to island to island and doing an Ironman a day. Wow. So that's sort of my athletic resume. And that was all fueled by eating a 100% plant-based diet. And to your question of, how do I think that influenced those performances? I'm not saying that I think eating plant-based makes you a better athlete inherently. But my experience, and this is an experience that's been shared with me by many, many people who have experienced the same thing, is that I believe that it allows my body to recover more quickly in between workouts. So anybody who's an athlete knows performance gains are not realized during your training session. They're realized in the period of time in between your training session when your body is trying to repair itself, know. And so to the extent that you can expedite that process, you can shorten the period of time that it takes for your body to bounce back. That means that you can train harder, push yourself, go longer, go harder, and do it more frequently, and reduce the risk that A, you're going to get injured, B, you're going to get sick or overtrain from pushing yourself too hard. And I think when you protract that out over the course of a season or even a number of years, that translates into some pretty significant performance gains. And, the first time I did Ultraman, I literally only had 7 months to get ready for it. And I'd never even done a half Ironman. And I really think that one of the primary reasons that I was able to prepare myself in such a compressed period of time for that race is by eating these very alkaline forming, nutrient dense, high in, antioxidant plant-based foods that really nourished my body and allowed me to kind of go out and hit it day after day after day after day. And in terms of, a typical training day, when I'm preparing for a race, it's a very slow kind of ramp up and of kind of increasing my volume over time. But as I kind of get into that zone where I'm about maybe 2 months out, training is probably about 20 to 25 hours a week. And every day is different. It's some version of swimming, cycling, or running. Quite often it's 2 workouts a day. Saturdays are really long rides that could get, upwards of 150 miles. Sundays are my long run days.
Wow.
When I get really close to race day, it's at least a marathon, upwards of a 40-mile run.
Wow.
And during the week, it's short. I've got 4 kids and I'm doing a lot of different things. So my workouts during the week are a little bit shorter, maybe a 2.5-hour ride and a swim in the evening, something like that.
Has this journey from drunk to athlete, what's it told you about your personality? It sounds to me like you have an obsessive personality. Like at one stage you were obsessed about drinking, and now you're obsessed about health. Are you OCD, or are you a fanatic, or like how would you describe your personality type?
Yeah, I mean, it's I get that a lot. People say, well, you just transferred all of your alcoholic tendencies onto training and the like, and my kind of I want to react and say, no, you don't understand, but I have to say, well, yeah, there has to be some merit to that. Like, I get it. I definitely, by nature, an extreme personality. And what gets me excited is, pushing the boundaries of my capabilities. So whether that means, how many beers I can drink or, how long I can ride my bike, those are close cousins, I would say. So there is some truth to that. But I think that, drinking destroyed my life and took me to, some pretty dark places and basically undermined everything good in my life. Whereas my experience in health and in endurance sports has only enriched my life. And, now, listen, I haven't competed in a couple of years. And, now my motivations have changed. What excites me is, talking to you, James, or finding new ways to spread a healthy message, or doing my own podcast, or writing books. And I still love the training lifestyle, but I'm much more balanced in it these days. I'm doing it for the joy. And so, I don't feel like I have an obsessive kind of approach to it, at least right in this moment.
Right. Well, Rich Roll, you've been a wealth of knowledge. This has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for giving us your time. I would say thank you for being a great sparring partner, because that, I guess, that alludes to paleo versus plant-based diet. But I don't think we're really sparring partners. We're just very much on the same team of wanting to inspire people in their health, whether it's plant-based, whether it's paleo, whether it's quitting or reducing your alcohol. There are so many spin-off effects to having good health. It is crazy. It's not just looking better. It's not just sleeping better. It's not just feeling better. It's the quality of your relationships. It's meeting the woman of your dreams or the man of your dreams. It's having a great relationship with your family. It's feeling amazing all the time and being a glass half full kind of guy as opposed to a glass half empty. Whatever you can do to improve your health is going to improve your overall life. So, Rich, I thank you very much, sir, for your contribution to that and for inspiring the world. richroll.com is his website. Send him a tweet right now if you're on Twitter at richroll, and just let him know what you thought of this interview. What any comments that you have for him? To say a big shout out to at Rich Roll and at James Swanwick. What did you take away from this? What are you going to do now? Are you going to go and get the ingredients to have a plant-based smoothie in the morning? Even if you continue to love food and love steak rather and meat, why don't you just substitute the cereal in the morning for a plant-based smoothie? See how it makes you feel. Test it. Experiment. But whatever you do, focus on health, because it will change your life. You can also buy his book, The Plant Power Way. You should have the Amazon app on your phone. Just right now, just as this interview ends, go on to Amazon and buy that book, The Plant Power Way. Send it over to yourself and learn more from Rich Roll. Rich, it's been a real pleasure, sir.
Absolute pleasure, James. Thank you so much. I couldn't have said what you just so beautifully articulated better. So I really appreciate you having me on, and would love to get out on a trail with you one of these days, since we're both local.
Well, we'll absolutely do that, Rich. I think you'll probably be running a little bit ahead of me, maybe 100 yards ahead of me along the way. But I'll try and keep up with you, mate. But I appreciate the offer, and I'd love to do that. Thank you again, sir.
All for the love.
And to the listener and to the viewer, I will catch you on the next one. James Swanwick here again. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I want to send you some free stuff. If you haven't yet got the Alcohol Freedom Formula, then you can get that at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. The YouTube channel is alcoholfreelifestyle.com/YouTube. I put out lots of educational videos on my Instagram page at James Swanwick. You can also find me on TikTok at James Swanwick. If this show has benefited you, I would so appreciate you leaving a review and giving it 5 stars. We have a 5-day no alcohol challenge, a 30-day no alcohol challenge. You can get details over at alcoholfreelifestyle.com. And if you would like to apply to be part of Project 90, which is our flagship process where you get a community, 7 coaching calls per week are available to you, a like-minded community, mostly folks in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, then you are welcome to apply. You can get all the details over at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/Project 90, and the details are in the show notes. Thank you again for listening. I will catch you on the next one.